Now, the Who's Next Project. Only on the Wells Report on 660 AM. The Answer.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is Jon-David Wells. Welcome to the Who's Next Project. The Who's Next Project is a project we started here on the Wells Report to give us an opportunity to meet the people that are running for public office in North Texas. Tonight, we go to the Texas 13th Congressional District, a seat currently held by Mac Thornberry, and running against Congressman Thornberry is Pam Barlow. She is an honorably serving veteran. Let me try that one more time. She's a daughter of a U.S. Army career soldier who served honorably in World War II in Korea. You're a stay-at-home mom and raised 4 successful children.
My mother was a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, your mother. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Let me see. So this is all wrong. Anyway, you have a B.S. in animal science, magna cum laude in 1975.
Yes, sir.
Well done.
Thank you.
So you are a veterinarian?
I am.
Fantastic. So if you see anything wrong with me, just let me know. Let's see.
You don't have enough feet.
Let's see. You are a member of the Army? You're serving at Fort Sill.
I was in the Army, spent 31 years in the Army, retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2007.
Wow. Outstanding, Colonel. Let's see, you were on the Individual Ready Reserve, selected for active duty, reserve duty as an individual mobilization augmentee, and you were selected for drilling individual mobilization augmentee again, and then served in those positions until you retired in 2007.
Yes, sir.
And you wrote U.S. Army regs.
Yes, I did.
Wow. Now, you had something you wanted to share with us based on the debate we were having a little bit earlier about President Obama's use of power.
Well, I was listening to what you said, and it reminded me that Daniel Webster quote would be perfect for this. It says, "It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters." There
you go. Well said. Well said. So, Pam, let's talk a little bit about the Texas 13th. Why are you running?
I'm running because, like a lot of people, I'm sure, I found myself screaming at the television set, something's got to be done. This is crazy. We're losing our country. We're going in the wrong direction. And I realized that I was shouting to my reflection in the television screen, and that if I was going to complain about it, I had better be ready to stand up and do something about it. So I looked into what it would take and what it would cost me personally and my business and everything, the world that I knew, to run for Congress. And I decided that even if I lost everything, my country is worth it.
Sure.
And I cannot stand back and allow things to continue in the direction they're going.
Let me ask you this. How do you believe Mac Thornberry has perhaps taken this country that direction?
Well, he was very conservative when he was first elected 20 years ago. He ran with the contract with America for term limits 20 years ago, and a variety of other things. But now, if you look at the scorecards, I think Freedom Works has him at about 50%, and constitutional groups have him at about 55%. When I went to school, 50 to 55% was failing. And I think that he is failing our district in representing us conservatively. Some of the things that he's done that have led me to feel this way, he is on the Permanent Select Intelligence Committee. So he knows about the NSA spying, the violation of the Fourth Amendment, spying on innocent American citizens. And yet he voted against the AMASH amendment.
Which was what?
Which was the amendment that was proposed to defund the spying on American citizens. Now, not defund the spying on terrorists outside of the country, but the American citizens, and he voted against that. And then here just recently, in the compromise budget bill, he is the vice chair of the Armed Services Committee, which means he should be taking care of soldiers and veterans. And yet he voted in favor of the bill that stripped 1% of the benefits from the retirees and the wounded warriors. So there's a lot of saying one thing and doing something completely different in Washington. And when you see someone who has a history of doing that and it appears to be getting worse every year, then I think you pretty much have to stand up and call them out and say enough is enough.
All right. Pam Barlow is our guest. She's running against Mac Thornberry in the primary for the Texas 13th. She is clearly conservative. She is clearly, are you a Republican or a conservative or a melding of both?
I am. I've been a Republican all my life. I have worked within the local parties in the areas that I've been in. I find myself to be very, very conservative. I have been with the Tea Party since its inception, and I learned a lot about the Constitution through the Tea Parties that I did not know prior to that. As I learned more and more about the Constitution, I found that, in fact, my conservatism is a constitutional conservatism. I believe that the Constitution is the groundwork and foundation of everything that has made this country grand and wonderful, and that we need to get back to that. We need to get back to the stability that we have in our founding and constitutional principles. And if we can do that, I think a lot of the ills that we're feeling in our country right now will correct themselves.
Let me ask you this. There are a lot of things in the Constitution that are, well, actually, there are only three things: take care of the borders, defend the country, and run the post office. There are other things beyond the Constitution that need to stay, correct?
As far as are you talking about in the federal government system?
Yes.
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think that the closer you can have the government to the people, the better the government will be. So there are things that are left to the states and the people thereof. And I think that's the right place for them. I think the federal government needs to have very limited powers and to do the things that it is supposed to do, like you said, such as take care of the military, enforce the borders, negotiate between our country and other countries, and help facilitate activities between the states.
Let me ask you this, though. Okay, so you say that's the way you would like to do that. Well, where would the Department of Homeland Security go? Would that become a part of the Defense Department?
The Department of Homeland Security, I think, would become part of the Defense Department.
And
because
same with the NSA and so on and so on.
Correct, and that would, and again, those things would be looking outward. This is the point. This is the point here. So what we have, is we'd have to find a way to, the Posse Comitatus law. Yes, sir.
That said that American federal forces will not be used in law enforcement roles in the United States of America. I mean, are we not in a position where we can have, say, for example, and don't get me wrong, I believe in a smaller government too, but I kind of like the FBI. I kind of like the CIA and the NSA, but looking outward. Those two agencies looking outward. I believe the DEA is an aberration of the FBI and needs to get back to the FBI and the ethical code that the FBI has managed to keep more or less intact since its inception. Same thing with ATF. And so there are certain things that I can see that may not necessarily fit so comfortably under the U.S. military or Defense Department. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a place that is extra Defense Department that I believe certain agencies ought to fit into. But certainly we don't need the Department of Education,
no,
Energy, Transportation, Bureau of Labor Statistics is my personal favorite. And so on and so on.
Right. Well, and I'm not so sure that those things don't fit in the Department of Defense. Those are things that are for defending our country.
I see.
So, if you use the more expansive definition of Department of Defense, then that as long as they're looking outward, as long as they are protecting the entire country from other countries or looking into providing intelligence that we need, then I think that they would, in fact, fit within the Department of Defense.
Dr. Pam Barlow is our guest. If you have a question for Dr. Pam, all you have to do is call us at 866-660-5759. She's running against Mac Thornberry in the primary for the Texas 13th. Now, what would you do as a freshman congressperson from the state of Texas, if you were to say, for example, get this job, what's the first thing you do?
One of the first things that I would do is to propose a bill to pare back our budget to what's called zero-based budgeting, where each department, instead of automatically assuming they're going to get an X percentage increase each time, would have to start at zero and justify their budget from the beginning to the end. It takes just an easy search on the internet to find all the waste, fraud, and abuse that there is throughout the federal government. And that's a lot harder to get away with if you have to start from zero and identify in your budget where everything is going to be spent. Beyond that, I would include in this bill the requirement for a constitutional citation. So if within the budget hey, you have this department or you want to do this event or this particular project, you would have to cite chapter and verse in the Constitution where that is justified as being part of what the federal government is supposed to do. And if there is no justification, then that department would be authorized a maximum of 90% of its current budget. What that would do is it would begin to pare back the budget, slow but sure each year, until those things which the federal government is not supposed to be doing would eventually fade away. It would give people time to transition, and it would give the states time to pick up on those portions of that they wanted to carry along and continue. I think that it would, within short order, would help us bring our budget back into to a little bit more balance.
I think that's probably a very, very worthy goal. I happen to believe that an $18 trillion number is so big that nobody can actually get their mind around it. I think that anybody that says they can, they're dreaming. And that we actually have this facing us with more and more and more every year. I mean, if we stop spending now, I mean, this is just preposterous.
Right. Well, the omnibus budget that is
only $1.1 trillion.
Yes, that's on the table right now is over $1 trillion again. The problem is the pockets they're picking are empty. We don't have the money to pay the debt, and eventually something seriously bad is going to happen if we don't come to grips with the fact that we are overspending. And it doesn't matter how much you expect the economy to grow or how high you think you can get the taxes up. We are overspending, and that is the problem.
So there are two main factions in the Republican Party right now, Tea Party Republicans and Country Club Republicans. And you said you had been working as a Republican most of your life.
Yes.
Do you now more closely ally yourself with the Tea Party?
I think that the Tea Party is what the Republican Party used to be. So, yes, I consider myself to be a Tea Party or an original Republican. Let's
talk a little bit about how those two groups are getting along in Washington, D.C. Not well, I would say.
Not well at all. But you know what? There are people who like power. And as it's been said, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And our founders never intended for us to have career politicians. We were supposed to be citizen legislators who went to Washington for a few years and then came home.
To live under the laws that they passed.
Live under the laws that they passed. And the accumulation of power is much more difficult if you're going to be in Washington a very short period of time. If you're there a lifetime, which is what so many of the folks are doing now, it's very easy to get into Washington, into that bubble, start making those friends who are going to help you out here and there with a little extra cash and a little extra benefit. And before you know it, you're part of that magic groupthink in Washington where everybody's the same.
She is Dr. Pam Barlow. She is a veterinarian. She has noticed that I have fewer feet than I need to have. She is also a former lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, HUA, And she is currently, I guess, are you still practicing as a vet?
I am the one person in the race who still works a full-time job every day.
She practices in Bowie, Texas. So if you've got, you take care of big animals, small, all creatures great and small, or do you specialize?
No, I take care of most of the small animals, the exotics, and what I call the small, large animals.
Small.
Goats, sheep, things like that.
How neat. You're listening to the Wells Report.
Now, more of the Who's Next Project. Only on the Wells Report on 660 AM. The Answer.
Dr. Pam Barlow is our guest, former lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. She's running against Mac Thornberry in the primary for the Texas 13th. And got tired of shouting at her reflection in the television. What a great picture that is.
I'm sure many people have seen that same thing.
Seeing you shout at the television?
Well,
I know that
hope
lots of people have seen me shout at the television, let me tell you. Let me turn this segment over to you in a way that can do you the most good. Why not tell the people of the Texas 13th why it is that they should vote for you?
All right. The reason that you should vote for me is because I am a constitutional conservative. What that means is that I believe that the Constitution and our founding principles are what we should use to guide our decisions. And it is what made us the freest and the most prosperous country in the world and kept us that way for a very, very long time. What people keep asking for is leadership in the Republican Party. Leadership to get things done. And I spent 31 years in the Army, retired as a lieutenant colonel, which means I have a backbone and I know how to use it. I think that changing from the person that is there, that has been there for the last 20 years, would be a good thing. Because at this point, where we are now is where we've gotten to during the time that that person was there.
How can people find out more about your campaign?
They can go online to pambarlow.com. That's PAMBARLOW.com. Lots and lots of information there. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter.
Pam Barlow, thanks for joining us here on the Wells Report. Good to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be with you.
You are listening to the Wells Report. This has been the Who's Next Project. More on 660 AM. The Answer next.